me, this is the biggest part of the Internet of Things I can imagine. We call it the digital rights management for IoT model. It's really simple. When you think about the future, I would want you to think about time first and health as a corollary to the value of your life and time. I'd obviously like you to think about capital, mostly financial capital, and you can throw the other forms in there as well. But look, money matters, man, and it's gonna for a long time, Bitcoin or not. But here's the third one, digital capital. We are just spewing digital exhaust. And there are not very many businesses that are capturing and harvesting that digital exhaust and deploying it in ways that are enriching a very small percentage of the population of the planet Earth. Fine, cool. But I think you guys can bust that up when it comes to the Internet of Things. Rather than conceiving of the Internet of Things as another device that creates device intelligence, that's another source of digital exhaust that you will harvest in your business and you will sell to advertisers and marketers and you will control. Imagine if you gave the person or the institution or the entity that owned the asset that you instrumented, if you gave them power, if you gave them control, if you enabled their community to say, okay, these are the rules we want to make up or take up with respect to the data that comes from the instrumentation of this asset. The hell did I just say? You ready? Right now, if you are running a milk processing plant and you have a whole bunch of rotary equipment, mixers, right? And those mixers are instrumented through some distributed control system or process control system. Unless you're real careful about this, here's the bottom line. Either the company that builds the machinery or the company that instruments the machinery owns the data that comes off the machinery. But you own the machinery because it's your factory. You bought it. True story. You own the factory, you own the mixer, but the instrumentation that enables you and the OEM of the mixer and the third party that has instrumented the mixer, one of those two owns the data. Now, think about this for a minute. Y'all are in business school now. If the mixer is one of the key components to your yogurt processing plant, would you consider it operational intelligence? Would you consider it maybe intellectual property? Would you consider it critical data or information that you want to protect? Would you be really comfortable if a third party had control over it and had the ability to anonymize it, aggregate it, market it, remarket it, sell it, redeploy it, however they saw fit, behind an opaque window? Kind of like what social media does today with a whole bunch of your social media activity. That to me is messed up. I think an intelligent home automation supplier or an intelligent appliance vendor or an intelligent IoT solution developer like you will come in and say, check it, I've got a home automation solution and the homeowner owns the data. Because I'm going to charge them for other value. I won't need to own their data and build an advertising revenue business because I'm creating real authentic value for them by the way I instrument this sucker. And oh, by the way, I'm going to go build a map of all the other people besides the asset owner, like the asset owner's service provider, the people who come to my house. And maybe it's that big brand who has an awesome appliance maintenance program. Maybe in a really simple graphical user interface, when I buy your application, you give me a little map that lets me know these are the people who have asked for permission to access data from your reefer, and you get to decide yes or no. And you get to decide under what terms and conditions. And maybe it's kind of like home insurance. If you have an alarm, you get a deductible, you get a little deduction. Well, maybe if you want to go and engage that brand to have them put your refrigerator under a service contract for 2 years, if you give them a little bit of data, you just got a 20% discount. Does that make sense? But it shouldn't be that the brand owns the damn data and gets the opportunity to sell your refrigerator usage patterns to anybody that they think might be interested in it. An HMO or an insurer could say, okay, this person has just applied for insurance. Let's go scrape a SOC feed or a social intelligence feed, and let's go see if we can get some kind of estimate of this person's general health and wellness. I would argue that unless and until we take certain algorithms and get them declassified, that we wouldn't have a level of accuracy that would stand scrutiny. But your point is well taken. Let's pretend for a minute what I just said is correct. It could be, but most of that technology is going to be embargoed for a period of time. But would you want to live in a world where a brand could do that to you? I don't. And I don't want to live in a world where a brand can look at what I literally do with my life in my home and start making decisions about how they're going to share the data about how I live my life. Now look, there's a brand that got into a little bit of trouble for this, and I'm not going to use the brand's name, but it was something like, you are the customer, and everything we do in our model, all the algorithms we build to automate this function is for you. And what came to pass was the possibility that maybe some of their strategic partners, in fact, were providing influence into that algorithm so that that brand could serve two masters. Now, look, I'm not saying these people are evil, and I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm just saying we can do better by being more transparent, by being more earnest, and by focusing on authentic value. In other words, grand challenges ahead of small conveniences. If we focus on the grand challenges, I guarantee you there's no enterprise or consumer in the world who's got a half a brain who's going to say, no, don't instrument my water well. No, don't give me the ability to better manage my irrigation system. No, don't reduce my supply chain as an organic community-supported agriculture farm and give me the ability to reduce waste from 40% to 22%. The logic is too strong. Have a debate on Facebook. I'll go first. It's going to splinter. And it's going to become a whole bunch of different splinter social networks with a whole bunch of different rules. And some of those rules will be, literally, one of the splinter social networks, and I have no idea, I have no inside information, will be, you control your data. Why? Because that is the direction that you are taking it. Because there's enough dissatisfaction with what's going on today, there's enough lack of trust with what's going on today, that the rules are going to change. And the hyper-concentration of digital capital, that is one of the unintended consequences of the way we've invested in and deployed IT over the past 30 years, that's going to change too. You are not going to see the Internet of Things roll out where every device has to call home to do anything. These devices are going to be so damn smart, they're going to be smarter than your smartphone today. For 20 bucks, 25 bucks max. It'll serve as its own policy enforcement point, its own session border controller, its own VPN initiator. These devices will self-identify, self-describe. They will start to request transactions. They will negotiate transactions. They will execute transactions, close them off, and record them on their own. And never ask another device except the one that it wants to have some kind of conversation with. It's not going to go back to a central server. It's not going to go to the cloud. This idea that everything is going to be quote-unquote cloud-based is a fallacy. This stuff is going to be so damn smart, it's going to make its own decisions within a set of boundaries. It'll talk to its peer group in its area of operation, but it's not going to be connected persistently to a centralized server or cloud or clouds in order to get authorization to execute a transaction. In other words, everything we think we know about IT, social, and mobile, about data privacy, and about business models and the economies of data, I think is going to change. Who owns the vast majority of what's called SOC Int or social media intelligence? Who owns it and has control over it? A handful of properties. The same could be said for the metadata digital exhaust off of smartphones. Again, I'm not beating up on Apple or Samsung, the two leaders, but at the end of the day, I don't think we understand just how much intelligence they have about the planet Earth by virtue of scraping all that metadata off those devices. What I'm saying is that's got to get distributed. Because that's what's going to enable another generation of entrepreneurs. That's what's going to enable the current generation of small and mid-sized businesses, and that's what's going to enable the larger enterprises that might be nearing unsustainability in their current business models to reinvent themselves. But if they're going to go to a handful of altars and bend a knee there, I think it's going to be real tough for a lot of the existing Tier 1 enterprises, a lot of the SMBs, and a lot of the entrepreneurs to reconcile that. What it's going to be is, what's yours is yours, and you get to have your own digital capital. Because he or she who owns the digital capital is going to be the primary disruptor of every domain of human endeavor on the planet Earth. Make no mistake about it. Tell me one thing in this planet Earth that hasn't been disrupted because of IT or social or mobile or the digitization of this transaction or another. The disruption's coming. It's happening. It's underneath us all over the place. The question is, can we find a way to distribute that capital so that we can have more ideas, more diverse ideas, richer ideas, ideas that come from different places. Look, man, you know, the last thing I want is 5,000 guys like me making decisions about this. I want the kind of like diversity and experience and perspective and life experience that I'm guessing this room provides. The old architecture of the entity that deploys the little device or deploys the service or does the instrumentation gets to own the data, whereas the rest of the people, the suckers in the physical world doing the hard labor with, you know, carbon people and analog breath, that division can't exist any longer because the people on the right side in the carbon businesses know. This is a scary statement. I'll get in trouble for it, but it's true. Enterprise knows that what they were able to do with IT, hedge or lever or commoditize human resources, the IoT can do to their core product and service business. You with me? And so one of the reasons why we haven't had this massive deployment of IoT is because a lot of the businesses are going, wait a minute. They're hearing some tech companies say, don't stop, you gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta go. Well, no shit, you gotta go, because a lot of the tech companies, not a lot, some of them, are not being very authentic about this. Just light it up. Just send the data. We'll figure it out. And the fine print says that he or she who owns that asset and lives in the physical world doesn't own the digital capital. I'm telling you from experience, that's one of the reasons why certain enterprises and classes of enterprises haven't deployed this more broadly. It's been a digital rights issue. Okay? Now before that, it's been too costly, it's been too complicated, and the ROI has not been clear. Because we've had some very standard architectures from mobile or IT or embedded that people have tried to shoehorn into the Internet of Things, and they're just not cost effective. And the stack that's required is too complex. And at the end of the day, and this is me now, the world loving me or hating me, we've had too many technology people driving the precursors to IoT or the M2M or IoT market. Too many people who are electrical engineers who knew about circuits or knew about firmware or knew about connectivity or knew about data but didn't know squat about air, dirt, water, corn, supply chain. We didn't have enough subject matter experts at the table. Where has it been successful? Honestly, where somebody comes in and really knows deeply that there's pain in a specific underutilization of a specific asset. So, where you can prove that you can optimize the utilization of an asset, that's awesome ROI. Where you can prove that you can reduce risk, that's awesome ROI. Where you can prove that at some point there's a very specific measurable change in the quality of the product or the service that you deliver to the customer that turns into some increase in loyalty or some increase in retention or some decrease in the cost of selling. That's what the ROI is rooted in. But one of the most boring ones is compliance. The enterprise saying, can you keep me more compliant at a lower cost with this instrumentation? I'm in. But that's not sexy, it's not violent, it doesn't sell in the big world. But if you want to know what's really driven deployment of IoT and M2M, it's compliance, increasing the experience, improving the experience of existing customers with existing products and services. That's not sexy either. Or it's been around cost management or reduction. It's asset utilization. It's hours of service. It's really boring stuff, but it makes money. I think you need to start thinking about data the way you think about your time, and how valuable your time is, and how you think about who you're going to spend that time with. When I was young, I made the sin, truly the sin, of not spending time with anybody who I didn't think I could learn from. I thought I was cool, right? I'm focused, I'm dedicated, I'm motivated, I need to learn, I got all these things I want to do. But I was making snap judgments about whether I thought I was going to learn something from someone, and then, yeah, I could learn something, but what is it? Is it valuable? You don't know what the value of the data is until you start thinking about what it is that you want to do with your time and how you might want to change your behaviors or your patterns and how you interact with these physical objects or these physical assets or these physical environments. And you won't know who you might want to share the data with. It's not just about you using the data. It's about these other stakeholders who might have the opportunity to help you create more value with your time. It's not about what you would do with the data. It's about what others would do with the data to enable you to do something different with your time.